Hey everyone, I'm going to let you get into the room. Give us a minute and then we'll start. Looks like we are all gathering together. So I'd like to say good afternoon and welcome to our very first NAPW eChapter meeting of the new year. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday season and that 2016 is off to a great start. We've been doing a bit of celebrating at NAPW. I didn't actually get the gift I asked for in 2015. However, it arrived about a week late. We have reached our 10,000 member milestone for the eChapter. Yes, we need to clap hands for that one. That's amazing. It's simply phenomenal. I want to thank each and every one of you for making our eChapter such a success. You have helped us grow the eChapter into NAPW's largest chapter in less than 4 months. Thank you, thank you, thank you for embracing this virtual chapter. Let's continue to build on that growth and connect members across the country and around the world. In case you haven't noticed, I'm in my pajamas. I must ask you all to forgive my casual, no makeup attire today. Yes, the freckles are real. You know how I'm always bragging about our eChapter virtual meetings and that they can be done from anywhere, having done them in an airport lounge, in the car on the way to the airport, from our New York office, our LA office, our Chicago office, even my home office. But today I'm doing our eChapter meeting from bed as I'm a bit under the weather with a bear of a cold. However, you know, the interacting with our NAPW members is my favorite part of being president, so I was not going to miss participating today. Just excuse me if I have to blow my nose. Let's just get into our eChapter agenda for today. With each new year comes new goals and challenges. I'm not one for making a whole lot of New Year's resolutions, but I do believe in setting goals and working steadily towards achieving them. One of the resolutions that appears very frequently on people's lists centers around getting one's financial or finances in order. Perhaps being a bit more diligent with saving money and investing in the future. Also, finally getting that weight under control, but that's for another meeting. As women, I think it's very important for us to keep a sharp focus on our finances and take a hands-on role in managing and investing our money. Today's eChapter meeting features a finance roundtable comprised of NAPW VIP members who will offer guidance and tips on money matters like budget and planning, personal finance, balancing, and financial awareness. Louise Newsome, our National Director of Local Chapters, will introduce you to our panelists shortly. You're also going to meet 3 outstanding VIP members in our VIP Spotlight segment. They're all inspiring in their own way, and this is one of my favorite segments. I can't wait to hear their stories of success. Finally, I want to remind you to be sure to participate in the polls that will appear throughout the meeting. This interactive aspect of the eChapter meeting really gives us some insight on our attendees and your thoughts on some very important topics. They also help set the agenda for future eChapter meetings. It's yours after all. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Louise, who's also the president of our New York City chapter. She and her team will spearhead our eChapter, and she will facilitate today's meeting. And as you can see, she's not doing it from bed. Louise.
Thank you, Star. I'm sorry you're feeling under the weather. Get better soon. And welcome to our first NAPW eChapter event of 2016. The eChapter has had a great start, and I'm excited to get going and have this initiative grow throughout 2016. Since we began in September, we've hosted 8 successful events with now over 10,000 eChapter members to date, as Star mentioned. From the start, the eChapter has gained our members' interest, as this event is all about our members, showcasing our members with our spotlights, panels, attendee involvement, and ability to connect with each other virtually. An example of how involved our members want to be in this initiative is that last week I sent out an email blast through the NAPW Message Center asking our VIP members if they'd like to be part of these events. In less than 24 hours, my email blew up with over 100 responses in my inbox. Now that's engagement. So I welcome you all today, our return attendees, and especially a warm welcome if you're joining us for the first time today. So that being said, I encourage all of you to be connecting with your fellow members and of course asking questions along the way. You will see the chat bar on the right side of your screen, and if you want to specifically ask a question or make a comment today, please click the little arrow on the chat box icon where you type and click Ask a Question. This will allow me to see your comments and questions since the chat room moves at a high speed and it's very difficult for me to pick up your comments and questions if you don't mark them. And then I can see them in my question box and I can bring you into the conversation. We also have in attendance today some additional corporate moderators to assist you or just chat with you along the way. They are Talia Cardiello, Director of Membership Services, and Sam Picorni, Local Chapter Manager, who will do her best to offer technical support if needed also. Please understand that we might not have time to go through all the questions today and appreciate your patience and understanding. You will also see several times during the event a poll pop up on your screen. Please take a minute to answer the questions as we will share the results during the panel discussion. Also, post-event, there will be a short survey sent out with the recorded version of today's event. Please take a few minutes to fill this out. Your feedback is really important to us. So the agenda for our event today is that we'll be showcasing actually 2 VIP member spotlights, as one of them had some technical issues and will come back on at a later date, before we invite our panelists on for a beginning of year discussion on enhancing your financial wellness. So for our first spotlight today, I would like to introduce you to Colonel Victoria Bowens, USAF, who is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion for the Department of the Navy since January 2014. In this capacity, she is responsible for providing authoritative advice and counsel to the Undersecretary of the Navy, the Assistant Secretary to the Navy, and Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Civilian Human Resources. She comes with 27 years of experience in the human resources domain and is a graduate from the University of Akron, Ohio, and a commissioned officer for the United States Air Force's Reserve Officer Training Corps program as a distinguished graduate, where she earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in Industrial Management. Additionally, she has earned a Master's of Arts degree in Administration from Central Michigan University and a Master's degree in Military Operation Art and Science for the from the Air Force's Air University. Welcome, Victoria.
Thank you, Louise. Can you see me?
There, we can see you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. I am so excited to be here today. And Star, I hope you feel better because I too just got over a cold, so I understand how you're feeling. First question I'd like to ask the ladies who are on the line today is, can you do it alone? And if so, how do you know it's possible? In 1997, I lost my father suddenly. He was the one that I leaned on to maneuver through a work environment that was predominantly male-oriented. You see, I'm a veteran of 27 years of service. Am I still on, Louise?
Yes, you are.
Okay, great. Like many of you, I questioned my value to be competitive in an environment that I knew had barriers. My value, worth, and capabilities were questioned every day. I never allowed my true self to be revealed for the fear of appearing to be weak or vulnerable. Even after my father passed, I tried my best to never show any emotion to those who I led. So in essence, what was I espousing? That I was unable to be a human being and that it was okay not to have feelings? In meetings, I would hold back on my opinions and refrain from being overly opinionated or, quote, combative. You see, during the 1980s, the word compassionate was not always the word used for women who were considered strong-willed and knowledgeable. My original decision was to only stay within the military for 4 years. We ended up staying 27. Why? Why would I commit to staying to an organization that would place limitations on my capabilities? After about 11 years in the military, I realized it wasn't about the organization placing limits on me. It was me. I was the barrier to my success. I placed roadblocks on my greatness. Once I realized that the pressure of allowing others to define my destiny was lifted, I catapulted to an even greater plane. I recognized my value even if others didn't want to acknowledge it. I knew what I brought to the table, and if they didn't want what I had to offer, I knew other organizations would. But don't get me wrong, not everything was a bed of roses. There were the naysayers, promotions that I thought I earned, didn't get, awards that were never received, accolades that were often afforded to others and not me would test my mettle. But I remember the words of my father and my mother and others who shared with me. I found that inner spirit to move forward regardless. I was never alone, and I didn't have to go through it by myself, nor did I want to. I could have easily chosen the easy route and leave an organization that I truly love to serve. Having now moved on to my second career as a director of diversity, supporting over 900,000 military and federal employees of the Navy and the Marine Corps, I can truly say that because I didn't wallow in my self-pity or allow the biases of others to define my destiny, I can be a better servant to others. A testimony to someone who's going through a challenge, the key is being prepared, confident within and controlling your destiny. If nothing else, going through a challenging situation places you head and shoulders above others who have not. At the end of my military career, I left with no regrets because the biggest reward was the experiences I gained, the friends and relationships developed, and the opportunity for my family to see the world. So in a nutshell, what I would like to leave with you today are three things. Be okay and confident with allowing your greatness to shine, even if it's not well received or appreciated. Be okay with espousing a confident attitude and passionate demeanor regardless of the working environment you're in. Don't settle for mediocrity or take shortcuts to please others. Embrace your value. Women are breaking the glass ceiling every day while not at lightning speed. A seed is being planted every day by the virtue of our passion, competence, and our propensity to make a difference in an environment that has not always been inviting. Thank you for your time, and don't forget that you don't have to do it alone.
Thank you, Victoria, for your inspiring spotlight. For our next spotlight, I would like to introduce Kim Lucian, who is the President CEO at Lucian Ltd. Incorporated. She specializes in entrepreneur and executive empowerment and lifestyle design coaching, also providing traditional business consulting that includes accounting and finance, business process improvement, and system implementations. As an executive and business leader, Kim is focused on increasing opportunities for profit through organizing people, processes, and systems to improve performance, generating business growth by developing and implementing strategic and tactical initiatives as part of a collaborative management team. Kim received her Bachelor's of Arts in Accounting, Finance, and International Business from the University of Washington Michael G. Foster School of Business, and is currently involved with the Stanford Who's Who. Her clients range in size from small, mid-sized to multi-billion-dollar clients with dynamic, complex environments in a variety of industries, including technology, high-tech manufacturing, entertainment, and retail goods. Welcome, Kim. Do we have daylight with you yet?
Well, it's sort of weird out, so it's only sort of daylighty.
Well, good
hopefully
morning.
Good morning. Morning, everybody. So basically, I spent over a decade in a totally traditional consulting career, and what I've been doing since then, over my decade, I was sort of quietly including consciousness and empowerment into my clients' businesses and when I worked with their employees. And in the last 24 months, I've decided to make that my primary focus in my practice. What I'm finding is that the status quo of business for the last 20 years and the way that we've been doing business and how it's done, it's not really working anymore, and it's time for a change. And especially considering the millennials that are coming into the workforce and what their priorities are and what their points of view are about business, they're different than they were before, and they're demanding something different. And as a society and as a community, as a world, we got to get on board with that. So my target now is to support businesses in creating innovative and sustainable, future-proof businesses by bringing into normalcy the points of view and functioning from what I call benevolent capitalism and benevolent leadership, and making that mainstream. So not just the businesses that do extra social community things, but actual just everyday business. So by going in and providing training and education and showing the businesses that it's actually in supporting and empowering their employees that they're able to create a sustainable future for the business, and that innovation and sustainability equals greater profits, and then showing them the type of business environments that type of business environment will create exponentially more than just focusing on the next 18 months and cutting costs. So I work with clients one-on-one, remotely, and I do one-day trainings with managers and above, essentially focusing on alternative ways to communicate and engage themselves and their employees in the business. Engaging the employees, it helps them feel like they're part of the bigger. It shows them what they're contributing and how they're a part of the whole. And I find that when people are engaged in that, whether they work in the mailroom or it's the CEO, it changes what they bring to the table. It changes how they function in their job, and then it changes how they go out into their community. And by doing that, it expands everything greater into the world for everybody around. So as part of that transition, I'm super excited to say that I'm finally going to be a published author. I have 3 different co-authored books launching in the next 60 days or so. The first book is called Energy of Spirit. It's a very loosey-goosey sort of non-business book, but it talks about spirit and faith and how that contributes to your life and impacts you. The next book's called The Power of Releasing Judgment. And then the Change Self-Empowerment Series, book 10. This series is actually being called the fastest growing self-empowerment series in the world. And it's full of professionals, consultants, entrepreneurs, coaches, healers from all over the globe. They're coming together to create this global consciousness and mainstream mindset through this book community. So I wanted to let everyone know, if you would like to email me at my email address, kim@kimmalamalucian.com, and put chapter in the subject line, I'll send you guys all a free copy of one chapter from the book. So that's it. Thanks for listening, and I hope that you're able to check out one of the books and that we get to connect in the future eChapter.
Thanks, Kim. Well, go over to the chat room and start chatting with the attendees. I see Victoria over there chatting away, so please go join them and talk more about your book. Unfortunately, our third spotlight for today, Dorcas Roars, who had some technical issues and couldn't get on, so we are certainly going to invite her on again next time, as I always love a woman, I should say, who runs a distillery. So she's very interesting, and in the meantime, you can check out her vodka, small batch vodka. It's called 1857, and she runs out of a family farm, Barber's Farm in upstate New York. So Dorcas, if you're on the line, we will have you back another time. So let's move on. January is financial wellness on the foundation calendar, and certainly a perfect time at the beginning of the year to be making any adjustments needed personally and professionally to put you on the right track. Today with our panelists, we're going to discuss some areas of importance and engage in a healthy conversation focusing on some important steps that enable financial wellness. So for our first panelist, I'd like to introduce you to Kat Lambertini-Obera, who is a senior financial advisor at Merrill Lynch, specializing in financial retirement services. Her skills and area of expertise include corporate retirement planning and wealth management. Kat's team's holistic approach to financial planning is completely customized to each client's unique circumstances. Her team acts as a family CFO, or in the instances of a corporate client, the goal to thoroughly understand the company culture in order to best address its needs. Advocacy of financial literacy is the foundation for the high-touch service model Kat's team employs. Kat is on the board of the Los Compadres at the Children's Hospital Los Angeles, as well as sitting on the board of Youth Mentoring Connection. Kat also sits on the Latino leadership team for the Bank of America. And additionally, Kat is a founding member of our NAPW Los Angeles chapter and is on the board as the finance chair and treasurer. Good morning, Kat from Los Angeles.
Good morning.
Great to have you here. So
Thank
just
you
hold
for having me.
tight. I'm going to introduce our next panelist, Charlene Zahn, who is the president at Zahn Financial Services, Inc., PC, which was established in 1985 to provide independent financial advising to individuals regardless of the size of their portfolio. Zahn Financial helps clients pursue financial security while minimizing income taxes and estate taxes. They don't believe that planning your financial future can be wrapped up in a package. It takes an individual approach. That means listening, gauging risk tolerance, and learning about special circumstances, then shifting as life shifts too. To complement their deep knowledge of investment planning, Zahn Financial Services also partners with the esteemed Commonwealth Financial Network to give clients a wide variety of investment choices, easy access to financial analysis, and seamless support for ongoing portfolio management. Charlene is one of our esteemed chapter presidents of the West Denver chapter for the past 2 years. Welcome, Charlene.
Good morning, everybody, and I apologize as well. I do have a cold, so I'm going to try and not bother you all with that. But it's a pleasure to be here today. Thank you.
Wonderful to have you here. Thank you. So as I introduce our third and final panelist, Jocelyn Jones, whose area of expertise are in nonprofit management and financial services. She is currently serving as the executive director of the Ark of St. Sabina, which is a community center on the south side of Chicago. The Ark of St. Sabina offers a variety of free services to countless youth and families in the community. Jocelyn received her Master's of Social Work from the University of Chicago and her bachelor's degree from the University of Iowa in journalism. She is also a marketing director for World Financial Group, WFG, where she specializes in helping individuals plan for retirement, eliminate debt, and properly protect their estate. Jocelyn is also a college planning consultant with the Heartland Institute of Financial Education, which is a national nonprofit organization that offers a college planning program that helps students and parents successfully navigate the complex college preparation, selection, and funding process. Welcome, ladies. It's a pleasure to have you here on the eChapter panel today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let's get started. And let's open up our discussion today with a pretty loaded question. What defines financial freedom, financial wellness, to you as an expert in this field? So I'm going to start off asking Kat to respond to this question.
Good morning. So that's a great question because it is a little different for everyone in particular. What I find to work the best for the peace of mind of most individuals, most clients, most families, is that that sense of freedom, of course, is many people believe it's about doing whatever they want when they want to do it. But I think it really needs to start with how much you have in the bank, right? One of the things I always tell my clients is that people that have a lot of money in part have it because they're not just giving it away and spending it. They have it because they know how to keep it and how to put it to work. So financial freedom really is ultimately about, excuse me, what your sense of having what you need for what your lifestyle is. And that you're able to have the option of saying, I want to make a change or I want to stop working when you feel it's appropriate, rather than feeling like you're going to have to change your path if suddenly you come up with a surprise. So being able to handle life's changes, which we know are often and common, without it completely disrupting your life is part of that freedom in a sense. So having the ability to really ultimately live your life on your terms, and of course having that financial security is a big component of it.
Thank you, Kat. I love the quote, how to keep it and put it in the bank. I mean, that's the biggest challenge, right? To understand how much money that you should be holding back and how much you can live on, and adjusting your life according to that. So actually, Charlene, I'd love to ask you the same question and have your comments here.
Okay. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. For a lot of my clients, financial freedom is managing debt. It's amazing how much debt people will rack up, and they'll come to me and they'll say, I'll start saving when I pay off my bills. Well, you will spend a lifetime paying bills if that is the attitude that you have. So we try to work with people to manage their debt, which our most successful retirees are people who have little to no debt. That allows them to do the things that they've saved their entire lifetimes for, such as vacations or going out to a dinner occasionally without having to worry about whether that would compromise other financial commitments, such as what we all consider basic, like paying for health insurance. These clients have the ability and, more importantly, the discipline to save. And that's another area where we work with clients. We try to make this a very non-threatening environment, but we will sit back and push them hard to save so that they can have a healthy nest egg at the end of their working lives. The other thing that we do quite a bit is we really encourage women to get involved in the family finances. Oddly enough, even young women are still oftentimes saying, oh, my husband handles all of that. That isn't acceptable in our office. We want the woman to be educated on the finances, and as importantly, we want her to have her own savings account as well, whether that's a retirement plan or just her own little nest egg. And so that's how we look at financial freedom.
Thanks, Charlene. We just ran a poll, and the question on the poll was, which of the following debts are you still attempting to pay off? To your point, Charlene, mortgage, 23% of our attendees said that, student loans, 15%, credit cards, 21%, hospital bills, 3%, weddings, nobody's still paying those off, two or more of the above, 37%. So, Charlene, I just want to go back to that. I mean, how do we manage the debt and then still be saving and still be thinking about retirement? Because, I mean, we are in a credit card culture, and of course, you know, college as well is very expensive here, and people take loans. So just a little more about managing that.
Well, what we will do is people hate the B word, budget. And so what we will do is we will have them, we'll sit down, manage analyze their income and expenses, and then we might do something as small as, say, you're going to start saving $50 a month. So we automatically take $50 a month out of their checking accounts the day they are paid, and then the rest of that money they can use to start minimizing debt. We've had to turn some clients away because one thing that they wouldn't do was they wouldn't stop using their credit cards. And some were even going out and applying for new credit cards. That person is not disciplined enough to be our client. And it isn't always comfortable for them or for us, but at the end of the day, many clients have sat in our conference room and said, thank you.
Right, a little cruel to be kind there, because you have to kind of, if you're going to manage, you have to be able to manage.
Right.
Otherwise, it's pointless.
And everybody has to be in the game.
Well, that's right. I'm invested, exactly. Excuse the pun. So thank you, Charlene. Jocelyn,
yes.
Your comments.
Well, these two ladies, they hit it right on the head. But when I think of financial freedom, first let me say this. A lot of times when people look at retirement, they think of retirement as an age, like 65. People always say that. But it's not an age, is a number in which you've put aside enough money in the bank, as Kat mentioned, where you can be able to walk away from your job if you want to. You can choose to go to work. And unfortunately, I see it all too often. I work at a nonprofit, and we have individuals who are senior aides who are still working with us at age 75, 80 years old, not because they want to, but because they have to. And so, you know, we have that uncomfortable position to tell people the truth and say, look, you do have to make some changes in your lifestyle. We are in a consumer society, and we believe often in instant gratification. And so we say we work hard, so I deserve that new pair of shoes. I deserve to go on vacation. And people plan, they spend more time planning for a vacation than they do plan for their financial future. And so we have to teach people to delay that self-gratification. Granted, I'm not saying you have to live like a hermit. You do want to enjoy some of the labor of your work, but you have to plan your pain and plan your pleasure. Plan to save so that you can have the pleasure of retiring at a comfortable age. And so when we look at your finances, we kind of equate it to having a seed. And you have a choice right now to say, I'm going to plant my seed in good ground that will produce a harvest later down the road through investments where the money can grow, or I'm just going to waste my seed and throw it all over the place, having no clue of what's going to happen to it, and eventually that money's never going to grow. And so when it comes to financial wellness, I say is a balance. Again, you want to be able to think long term, you want to enjoy the short term, but you cannot always think about right now, or you will never be able to enjoy the later.
Jocelyn, thank you. I love that. Plan your pain to plan your pleasure, or plan your gain, whichever way you want to look at it. I just want to make a comment to the attendees. I see you all making fabulous comments, maybe not necessarily questions, but comments. If it's something that you'd like me to share, please tag it. As I said, if you put click that icon that says question, because the chat is moving so fast that it's very hard for me to grab your comments, but they will populate in a separate area and I'll be able to bring them into our conversation. I did see something shoot by in the chat room regarding the college loans, that someone was making a comment about $400,000 worth of college loans. I mean, you know, that's just talk about this a little bit, since it's something that we, you know, many of us have to deal with, if it be ourselves because we're going back to college, or with our children. I mean, how do we even get around this? You know, I mean, it's a problem. Jocelyn, do you have some comments?
Sure. Yeah, it's really bad. And it's one of those things, it's crazy how it's set up because it's so easy to get in tons of student loan debt. It's the easiest process, right? But the thing is, first, we have a college planning program that we offer, and this does nothing for those who are already in debt. But if you have a child, you want to try to help your child to make the best decision as possible as far as what school they're going to go to and what major they're going to choose. Nowadays, individuals, they don't go to a 4-year college for 4 years anymore. The average is 6. And that's because they go to school not having a clue of what they want to do. I mean, you're asking an 18-year-old who's trying to find themselves, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? A lot of adults don't even understand that, right? And so it's important to help that child to figure out what is the best major for you, so you're not going to a university just because your best friend's going there or a major sounds cool. That'll help the child from wasting their parents' money and going into unnecessary debt. But secondly, it's also just making sure that you have the proper research done ahead of time. Sometimes people go to a state school or a university that's cheaper just because they think that they're going to end up saving money in the long run, when in all actuality, if you choose the right school based on your major or based on what's best for you, you might be able to come out better as far as financially, because that school might have more endowments where it might be cheaper for you to go to that school. You might be able to get additional money. And so it takes research, and it honestly takes working with a professional, a college professional, to help you to navigate what is your best move so you're not wasting money and you can take advantage of resources that are out there. As far as the debt that people are already in, there are student loan forgiveness programs out there, especially if you work in the social sector. You can get your loan forgiven after 10 years. And then there's other ways that you can get your loan forgiven, but there's programs and agencies that specialize in student loan forgiveness. And so that's something that I encourage people to look into. I'm willing to send out some recommendations of some student loan forgiveness companies that people can look at into.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Actually, Lorana, who's on the line, asked the question, how do I help my children with student loan debt? So actually, Lorana, you should get in touch with Jocelyn, and she will be able to assist you for sure on this issue. There is questions populating up here now, up on the screen. So I just want to bring up Sharice's question, and maybe Kat can comment on this. If you're significantly in debt, where do you start?
Yes, well, that's a conversation that you have with a number of clients when they bring to you what they're doing as far as their assets, or even just starting to plan. One of the things in particular to debt that you have to consider is when you want to look at everything. So you really want to write it all down. You want to create, you know, if a spreadsheet helps or whatever it is. But one of the ways that I look at debt is look at it as far as how much it's costing you, right? So I find that some clients have cards that have 23.99% interest. I mean, something crazy. So you want to look at your your cards in part in order of the highest payments. Make sure that you're getting rid of those as quickly as you can. You know, allotting the money. You really have to consider, and like my colleague had said about, you know, that budget, you have to make getting rid of the debt a priority. And if it means sacrificing something in order to do it, it's simply what you have to do. Carrying debt is terrible. You ruin your credit and you are no one to nothing. It is very expensive to be poor. And so everything costs you more when you don't have your finances in place. And so debt, if you have a lot of debt, it has got to be your priority to get rid of it as quickly as you can. And you do want to work with a professional, you do want to work with a consultant to help you figure out, you know, in what order, how to do it. You have to stay current on all your payments anyway, because you do not want to ruin your credit. But maybe when you figure out where you can take from your budget in order to be drawing down on that debt, you want to be able to look at what's costing me the most and attack that more aggressively first. It's one of the tactics that we suggest that people use. In some cases, it might mean that you have to work with one of these credit consulting companies. A lot of people don't know that when they start working with those, it actually further affects your credit in a negative way, because now that's on record and they're seeing that you're, you know, struggling to do it and that you're working with them. However, excuse me, over the longer term, once you get beyond that program, it may, you know, you can then start to rebuild that credit. But ultimately, you know, one of the things, especially with the poll, when I read the questions, and it said people who are getting, you know, they're trying to pay off their wedding still. If you have to take out debt in order to pay for a wedding, you are not ready to be married. I'm sorry, but you're just not. I mean, that, you know, having a financial conversation with your soon-to-be is massively important. You do not want to marry debt. You don't want to start your marriage, you know, in debt. It's just not a good place to start at all. You know, it's part of it. You know, some of it has to do with our maturity levels, especially for our younger members, as far as, you know, looking at what's important. And yes, of course, being married and being with the one that you love is a high priority, but it can't be based on debt, you know, and it's something that really needs to be considered. So debt is a big conversation, and it's something that we have to face head on, and you have to look at what you're doing right now. You have to look at your habits. You have to look at how much you're carrying now. You have to look at how you use it. And ultimately, if unless you're using it as revolving credit to build your credit, and you're not going to have the money to pay it off, and it's truly not an emergency, you really shouldn't be using your credit cards.
Thanks, Kat. Yeah, this is tough talk. It really is. This conversation, I knew that, you know, it certainly creates agita for some, and, you know, but it's really good to get down to sort of the nitty-gritties here. I want to go on to our next question and ask to Charlene to come in and answer this first. When we talk about financial planning, it's not a one-size-fits-all strategy, as we discussed already. Share with us some tips on what we should be thinking about when it comes to a personal financial plan.
Okay, excuse me. What we look at is we'll sit down with the person at our conference room table and we'll ask them, what are your immediate and long-term financial needs? Do you have a car that's on its last mile and you're going to have to be replacing it soon? Do you own a home now? And if not, do you wish to own a home? If so, are you diligently saving for a down payment, as well as for the funds needed to furnish a home? That's one area where people forget. Oh my goodness, I moved into this new home and I don't want to remove any of my old furniture in here. And window coverings are a lot more expensive than people realize. Do you have parents or children who may need your financial support? We're seeing the sandwich generation. You know, they're taking care of mom and dad and they're taking care of the children at the same time. That's quite expensive. How do you feel about investing in the stock market? Is this volatility scaring you, or are you comfortable with it and realize volatility is part of investing? The financial needs and the risk tolerance are unique to each individual who walks into our office.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. We made comments that it depends on everybody's individual circumstance and need base. Jocelyn, do you have any comments here?
Sure. The first thing I tell people they need to do is just take an honest look at themselves right now. You need a snapshot of where you currently are. If you're in debt, do you have bad habits that are going to cause you to stay in debt unless you change them? So we want to look at where you're at. Then we want to look at your short-term and long-term goals. Do you want to buy a house soon? Is it that getting rid of debt a high priority? When do you want to retire? And so looking at these goals from there, we can kind of have a plan we can create a plan to work towards creating those goals or making those goals. The ladies mentioned before, the B word that people don't like, that budget. You have to have a budget, and most people have a difficult time creating a budget because they don't know where they're spending their money. And so when I initially sit down with a client, I ask them to track their expenses, every expense from the dollar coffee to going out for lunch for at least 2 weeks, so they can see if they have holes in their spending. One of the biggest holes in someone's spending is eating out. And so with that, we kind of look at where their budget is, and then we can see where we can cut down on certain things that are they're just pretty much throwing their money away. From there, then we can work on a balanced approach to handling certain things. Like Charlene mentioned, we have to handle debt, but if you're putting all your money towards debt and not saving, as soon as an accident takes place, an emergency happens, you're going to go right back into debt using a credit card. So we want to make sure we have a balanced approach between taking care of things right now, then working towards planning for the future, whether it's through retirement, preparing to buy a home, and then we just have to, again, like Charlene mentioned, just kind of look at what some of your individual unique goals are altogether. But the approach has to be balanced, and every person's financial plan is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, thank you, Jocelyn. We did just run another poll, and the question was, do you think that men and women need to look at their retirement plans differently? So 58% of our attendees said yes, and 42% of our attendees said no. So actually, Donna, one of our attendees, makes a comment here. The poll asks if men and women look at retirement plans differently. I think it depends on if a woman has always been a single supporter. And then Monica says, does anyone have strategies to manage debt when you and your husband don't have the same philosophies? So Kat, do you have any comments? That's a great question.
Yes, actually, and that is something that will come up, because oftentimes when there's an event that happens where you can finally get a couple to come in and sit down, and I'll give you an example. I had a couple that were high school sweethearts, and I met with them when they were in their 50s, and so they knew each other really well. He had a construction company, she worked for a nonprofit. Their families were very intertwined. Well, they had never ever had a discussion about retirement, and when we sat down to talk, it was clear that they weren't retiring together because they wanted such completely different things, and they were kind of shocked when looking at each other, saying, I didn't know that you wanted to do that. So these are important conversations to have. Now, if you have different tastes and different goals, sometimes I find that when people actually retire, or one of the couples, one of the members of the couples retires, that you're playing marriage counselor part of the time, because all of a sudden, things are shifting around, and they've come to you with all their financial things, and they have a lot of trust in what they're talking to you about. But it is, as men and women, I mean, the basic is that because we live longer than men, then we are definitely planning for longer, and so we need to have a little more put away in order to not outlive our income. So just from a basic demographic kind of statistical situation, we do have to look at it differently. The other is what you're bringing up about having very different ideas about money. Well, generally, if it's like that, you're already having problems in your marriage to begin with, or in your partnership, because it's a big deal. You have to have some idea of if it's not the same, that it's at least compatible, because you don't want somebody who's being a spendthrift and someone who's trying to be overly frugal either and not enjoying themselves. So by having those conversations, this is how we kind of start working toward finding that middle ground, because there is a middle ground, generally. And again, this is a very fluid conversation, because even what we want to be doing in retirement can change over time. I'm finding more and more today that people who go into retirement are getting bored very quickly and are wanting to come back into the workforce to do something that they've always wanted to do, or just something different from what they've done in the past. So it is different, definitely, but if it's not compatible, then I think the conversation becomes much bigger than just your finances, ultimately.
Yeah, tricky, very tricky. Actually, Audrey, one of our attendees, says, does anyone have strategies to oh no, hold on, that's not it. Where did it go? It was actually about taking money out of your IRS to pay off debt. So here we go, Audrey again. She says she's 59 and a half. Would you advise to take out money in my IRS to get rid of debt? Charlene?
You know, I usually do not suggest touching that retirement plan, especially if you are continuing to work. I understand that she's over 59 and a half, so she will be able to forego the 10% penalty, but she is still going to have income taxes on it, so she's taking really some of her most expensive money to pay off the debt. And beyond that, I would probably have to really sit down and evaluate how she's spending her money currently, what the debt is. If it's a very expensive credit card debt, we may have to evaluate whether that would be a good idea, and what other monies she has available for her retirement.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So, you know, of course, eChapter just moves so quickly. I'm looking at the time. It's like 12:45 already. So I do want to get through these questions, and I know Star wants to come back on and have some time with you guys as well. So I just want to ask Jocelyn, what are some of the key differences or similarities between a personal and business financial plan, and are they ever interwoven?
Yes, I think there's a lot of similarities more than differences. I think when it comes to both running a business financial plan and your personal financial plan, you have to have a goal and a plan for both, meaning that it needs to be written. A lot of people, they say they have goals, but they really don't, because they don't write anything down. And so you need to write down your actual goals. And when it comes to managing your business finances and your personal finances, you have to set aside a time regularly to review the finances. I think one thing that technology has done that kind of has made people very lax about their finances is you can set up auto payments for your bills and for a lot of your obligations, and so people stop looking at their statements. They don't ever review it. So someone could literally do something fraudulent with your account, or they can overcharge you, and you would never know until months later, or not at all. And so it's important for you to review your finances on a regular basis and kind of see if you're overspending, even with your budget. People do the budget exercise for fun at the beginning of the year, and they never review the budget to see if they stayed in. So it's just an exercise. It's a waste of time. So both within your professional setting and with your personal budget, you need to revisit it on a regular basis, and then see if you missed the mark, and then from there you can again assess to see what changes you need to make to get right back on track. So I think there's a lot of similarities in both.
Yes, and Jocelyn, to your point about, you know, having all your bills paid online, it's true. We try to set up these systems to make life easier, but it's true. Things can run away with us, and we're not checking and not seeing that money's coming out of our account for something that we shouldn't be paying for. So that's definitely a good note to make here. I want to ask you, Kat, maybe you can answer this. Jamie was asking one of our attendees to suggest some books on financial wellness.
Oh, well, I happen to have one right here that I can show you. This is a book, and there's a number of things, and everyone likes different things to read, but a girlfriend of mine, Nancy Tangler, she has written this women's guide to successful investing. It's somewhat basic, but it's a really easy read, and I think it's a great way to start getting familiar with what you need to do, and in a sense, just kind of get a grasp of how the markets work, because I know a lot of us, especially in the beginning, will tend to not look at this information, primarily like, oh, you know, my husband's handling it, as one of my colleagues was saying, because we're afraid to look at it. You know, we don't know anything about it. We're not sure how to look at it, so we just kind of tend to ignore it. And it isn't acceptable, as it was said, and under any circumstances, you really have got to start not being afraid. You have got to take the fear out. A lot of times working with a professional will help you to do that, because in a sense, I know one of the things that I do is help to manage the stress of the markets for a client. But you want to do something. One of my favorite easy read magazines for people to just get in the mode of savings is Kiplinger's. So that's another one that I suggest everyone look at. But ultimately what it comes down to is the financial vocabulary. I have found that once people get familiar with financial vocabulary, they start finding out that a majority of the things that they're hearing on the news, on the radio, are irrelevant to a specific situation and to the day-to-day. So that's just one of the books that I suggest. Kiplinger's is a magazine, but you should pick one particular trade communication form, whether it's a podcast or a magazine or a website or a book or whatever it is, and start to read it and follow it. And at first it may not be that understandable, but you will pick it up eventually. And you can have financial dictionaries online. Look up what the words mean so that you know what's going on, and ask questions. You have resources within NAPW where any one of us is happy to receive an email and help you out with whatever question it is. So don't be afraid to ask. And I really love that January is a financial literacy month for our organization, because it's a really fun meeting. I wanted to invite everybody in the Los Angeles area or Orange County to please come to our meeting on January 20th at 6 p.m. in my offices in Beverly Hills. You can send me an email online, and we will be learning to read a mutual fund fact sheet so that people can really take a look at how that works. And in addition, we're having a photographer come in to take a professional headshot. So we're offering, as part of our meeting, a free professional headshot for us to use, because sometimes I look online and I see pictures that probably aren't the most appropriate. You can do something that's a little more professional. Make sure you're representing yourself well, and it's something you can use on your NAPW website or on your own websites, or just have an extra one that's available. So I would love to see everyone come, and please get focused on your financial literacy. And it is very important to become financially literate. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't, that you want to get to a place to where you're day trading your accounts or anything like that. I would hate for you to all do that, because that's another conversation. But it is important to sit down and be able to comfortably have the conversations and ask the questions, so that you can stay on top of your finances and reach your goals, as they continue to change and as you start to meet them.
Thanks, Kat. And I love the fact that you're in your NAPW office, I see.
Oh, yes.
That's great. Well, actually, I know, Charlene, you have an event coming up, and I'd like you to plug that as well, your next chapter event.
We have a luncheon actually today that I'm going to attend right after this webinar is finished, and I will be talking to the ladies about the Financial Literacy Month. So again, it's one of those things where even a lot of these young ladies are saying, you know what, my husband takes care of it, and they don't want to delve into that. And it's something that I'm going to continue to emphasize with these young ladies and just say, no, that isn't an option. You need to educate yourself. Call me. I will be more than happy to talk to you. And then we have a meeting at the end of the month, the last Tuesday of the month, and I think we'll try and roll out something that will be even larger. We don't have it in place just yet, as we're kind of going through a transition of the presidency, but definitely we'll be continuing to bring this to the forefront with all of the ladies in our group.
Wonderful. Thank you, Charlene. Well, we did run our last poll, and the question was, how important do you think it is to see a financial advisor to assist you with your financial planning? So 43% of our attendees think it's extremely important, 41% moderately important, 14% slightly important, and 2% not at all. So, ladies, it seems like most of our attendees think it's pretty important. So, ladies, reach out to these wonderful women, ask for advice, don't sit alone with this. At this point, I want to invite Star back on and welcome her back online with us. Star. Oh, you're on mute.
I think I got it now. All right.
You have. There you are.
Wonderful. Thank you, Louise. I have really enjoyed listening to some of the advice today. I can tell you that I started my morning out with a colleague, and we had the same conversation. My friend Sally Krawcheck, who is the president and founder of Elevate, another women's networking organization, and we're always looking for ways to partner. And so we had a full conversation on women and investing. And I shared with her something that I was recently asked by AARP. You know, the first time you get that AARP notice in the mail, you realize, boy, you have gone over that age limit. You're over 50. And I was recently interviewed by them, and they asked me, what is the best investment I ever made? And so I thought I would share with the ladies today a real honest answer, the same answer I gave them. The best investment I ever made was really an investment in myself. After I graduated from the University of Houston's law school, I really got my dream job of being a prosecutor in New York City. But I knew that passing the bar would be the first step on my path to professional success. So I left Texas, moved to New York, and picked out the very best summer bar prep class that they had. It was far too expensive for me. I mean, double what some of the others cost. And I had $75,000 in student loans to pay back. So it was going to be a really tough stretch since my job didn't even start until August. I took every cent of my graduation money and I sunk it into paying for that course. And I passed the bar on the first try. That is really what set my career on the trajectory for success. And so I've sort of put together over the years something that I've called my simple 7 of investment. And so I'd like to just share it with you all now. If you want to be truly successful, invest in yourself to get the knowledge you need to find your unique factor. When you find it and focus on it and persevere, your success will blossom. Number 2, do something today that your future self will thank you for. Number 3, investing in yourself is the best investment you will ever make. It will not only improve your life, it will improve the lives of those all around you. Number 4, invest in yourself and your development. You're the best investment you'll ever make. After all, you are your product, your means, and your end. Number 5, invest in yourself, invest in self-discipline, invest in self-satisfaction, have complete control over your own thoughts and convictions, and never stop aiming to outdo yourself. Number 6, invest in yourself. It is not selfish, it's self-love. And the last one, number 7, is something that I learned as a young person, and it's from Dr. Seuss. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose. You're on your own, and you know what you know, and you're the one who'll decide where to go. For me, those are the simple 7 that have kept my career on a path for success. And I will do a little cut and paste and put them out for all of you. I hope they will be as helpful to you as they have been for me. Thank you very much, Louise, and thank you, ladies, for joining us today.
Thank you, Star, and thank you, ladies, for sharing such valuable information with us today. If any of the attendees have further questions, please feel free to reach out to any of our panelists today via email. Their information is on today's PowerPoint. All NAPW eChapters are recorded and saved on YouTube for you to find and watch again. And as we wrap up our final eChapter, or not our final eChapter, our first eChapter event of 2016, I would like to thank our panelists, Kat Lambertini-Obera, Charlene Zahn, and Jocelyn Jones, our 2 VIP members, Victoria Bowens and Kim Lucian, and the 900 members who registered for our event today. Also, thank you, Star, again, for leading off our eChapter event, Talia and Sam for chatting with the attendees, and the NAPW team as a whole for supporting and working with me to bring our eChapter to life. We will continue to host the eChapter bi-weekly, following the NAPW Foundation calendar each month, just as all our local chapters do. Our next eChapter event will be Wednesday, January the 27th at 4 p.m. Eastern, and the topic will be Mentoring, How to Ask for Help. For more information and sign up for future events, please visit our eChapter group page on napw.com. Also a reminder that post eChapter there will be a short survey sent out with a recorded version of today's event. Please take a few minutes to fill this out. Your feedback is very important to us. If you wish to find out more on being a VIP Spotlight presenter or panelist, please reach out to me via email at localchaptersoffice@napw.com. We encourage you all to continue the conversation on the eChapter activity wall. There is so much more to discuss and wonderful connections to be made. Thank you again. Thank you to our speakers for joining us today, and NAPW wishes you a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year.
Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Star.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.